This is the original Firefighter Podcast, where we talk about anything you would talk about at the firehouse kitchen table. And sometimes we even talk about fighting fires. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Let's get into the show. Welcome to the original Firefighter Podcast, and we're excited today because we are on location at Strike the Box, 6935 11th Street in New Milford, Illinois. And we're excited. How are you guys doing, man?
Great. Couldn't pick a better spot.
Yeah? Look at this place.
No better place to be at 6 a.m.
Yeah. You bought a few pipes in this
6
joint,
a.m. on
haven't
a
you?
Tuesday. Yeah, actually, we all three picked out some pipes from here not too long ago.
We got the VIP treatment because we came in before it's open.
Yeah, that's true.
So we got to work out a deal.
Yeah.
We're seeing the behind the scenes here now.
No, we welcome you guys to the show, whether you're listening or watching. Very shortly, we're going to have the owner of Strike the Box, Alan, and we'll tell you all about who Alan is and what he's doing here at Strike the Box. It's a great place, great location, cool vibe, tons of selection of cigars in the humidor behind us, loose leaf tobacco, the pipes on the walls, and but we're gonna let
dragons on
Those
the
are lions. Lions?
I think it's dragons.
Yeah.
I think they're dragons.
Yeah.
Well, whatever they are, animals.
Some mythical creature.
Maybe mythical, maybe not, maybe real.
gargoyles.
Gargoyles?
On the
gargoyles.
armrests of the chairs.
Guys, a couple things have been happening this week, and obviously, throughout our episodes, we do try to touch on things that we talk about at the firehouse kitchen table. I gotta imagine that they selected a new pope yesterday in Vatican City.
From Chicago.
And he's from Chicago. We got to do the accent immediately, right?
They're bringing in the Italian beef.
Yeah. I'm Norwegian, by the way, so
Does that mean
I'm
the
terrible.
Cubs may be blessed and they might start winning.
So
Is that
He's
any
a Sox
indication?
fan.
Is that indicate? Oh,
yeah, he is a Sox fan. He is. They announced that. Yeah. I had the news on yesterday.
1.4 billion people just converted to Christianity.
Yes, right.
Catholicism to be more.
I had the news on yesterday when it actually happened. I saw the white smoke, go up, and then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hang in here and just watch the whole thing. And I gotta say, and I'm not Catholic, but I gotta say, it was moving. It was, even if just watching it, on television and seeing kind of the anticipation.
Yeah.
What name are they gonna read? And then have him be actually, physically in front of the whole crowd, and just to see everybody that was in the Vatican Square there, it was moving. I'm not gonna lie, I felt something.
I couldn't tell.
I felt like I was actually alive inside.
He gave a speech, addressed the crowd, but he did it in Italian, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I couldn't tell. I don't speak Italian, so I couldn't tell if his Chicago accent was coming through in Italian.
Yeah.
Ditka.
Yeah. Da Bears.
Da Bears.
So I just want to stay on that point for a minute, though, that the emotional part, the connection, and like I said, that's not my faith, but it is the faith of 1.4 billion people around the world. It's
kids crying.
Yeah. It was really, really impressive.
That was me when the Bears won the Super Bowl. Was that kid crying when they elected a new pope?
Yes.
That was my emotions when the Bears won the Super Bowl. I'm like,
yeah. That was my emotion when Jar Jar Binks was part of Star Wars.
Tears of joy or tears of pain?
Pain.
You ruined the franchise.
You ruined the franchise
with one character.
Yeah. So it's funny, and I bring that up because, and I no kidding, I had turned my back to my TV, and I was just hearing audio. Well, the band started playing, and I'm not kidding. I thought for sure I heard John Williams, like Star Wars, playing, and I'm like, are they playing Star Wars right now?
John Williams got the gig to write the score for the reading of the Pope's name.
All the pomp and circumstance, though, it is very, very interesting. Obviously, I can't think of another religion that has more ornamental and the symbolism and the religious ornamental connection to what it all means. I don't get it. I don't follow the theology of Catholicism. But
I think Rob is our resident.
But they're in
expert
it. I
on
mean,
Catholicism.
yeah, and I know enough to like get myself through a service, I guess. Not in
There's
actual
a lot of ceremony.
Latin.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a lot of sit, stand, kneel.
Yeah. The worst thing you can ever get is a wedding invitation. You find out that they're going to be doing a Catholic service. You're like, son of a bitch.
This is not going to be outside.
Yeah, this is not going to be outside. We're not going to be cocktailing before, maybe a little after, but you know.
Oh, they can cocktail.
Yeah.
Catholics can cocktail.
Yeah.
There was a Catholic church down the road when I lived in Chicago, and they threw the best Oktoberfest in town. I mean, kegs and kegs of beer at the church.
Yeah.
Right down the road. Awesome church.
Fundraiser though, right?
Yeah.
It's all for the kids.
Yeah.
So our Pope it's the first time ever in world history that the Pope is from America.
Yep.
Making Catholicism great again.
I knew somebody was going to go there today.
You have to. Hey, I've already seen on social media, I've already seen somebody do a meme where it's the new Pope and he's wearing Chicago Bears paraphernalia. You know, so I mean, you can't get offensive. You can't be offended because they did a meme of Trump as the Pope a couple weeks back.
Right.
But now we've got the actual Pope and he's wearing Bears gear. So I mean, you know, come on now.
One of my favorite memes was Catholics flocking to the internet to Google the Pope to see if he's Catholic.
Fact check. Fact check. Is he really from Chicago? Oh yeah, what neighborhood?
Just at the Chicago Pipe Show this last weekend, they had some hand-carved pipes of Trump's face. One of them was Trump. One of them was Trump wearing the Pope's hat. And one of them was Trump wearing the royal crown.
Yes.
It's like,
yeah.
We're out there.
That's quick carving.
Yeah.
That's staying current.
Yeah, you'll have to put
They're
that up. You
whittling
showed
away
that. That was a great photo.
Yeah.
I do imagine, like, you know, they announced that the new Pope is from and is Leo, right? The 14th. Pope Leo the 14th.
His chosen name.
His chosen name. So Pope Leo the 14th. He claims he's from Chicago. He better not be like actually from Naperville because Chicagoans, they don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, you better be from an actual neighborhood.
I think his last name is Daly, so probably all right.
Really? No. He's Daly. Yeah, so anyways, so that's obviously a moment in history. And I think it was very, very interesting. I'm actually glad that I watched it. You know, the whole conclave and I think they figured that they went through 4 rounds to get the final vote.
It wasn't long. This is the shortest one in recorded history, right?
Yeah, and so get this. And this goes back, I might be off by a century, but something like in the 16th century, a conclave lasted like for 2.5 years. No kidding. You can fact check that. But for real, that was something that was thrown out there yesterday.
24-hour news cycle.
Yeah, I mean they're always
drags on.
Yep.
More black smoke.
Black smoke today.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Right. So there's that, and then a couple of the things that I've kind of taken notice on is, so in previous episodes we've talked about how we've been having more and more airline close calls and catastrophes, right? Disasters. We touched on the helicopter that went down in the Hudson River, obviously. The helicopter and the plane out in D.C. that, you know, made contact in the air, and that was obviously devastating. This last week, 2 F/A-18 fighter jets have fallen off of aircraft carriers.
The same aircraft carrier, right?
Well, that one I wasn't
think
sure
so.
if it was the same one or not.
I think it is,
But
yeah.
2 of them in a week have fallen off of aircraft carriers.
So deal with that. Like, didn't engage the parking brake.
Well, I don't know, but whoever the valet, he's not doing his job.
I blame it on the huge waves from global warming.
Do you?
Kind of, yeah.
Huge waves.
It's global warming.
Those
Everything's global.
So those come in at like $70 million a piece. Yeah. So hopefully they can dry them out.
And you can't afford that.
What?
Even you.
You don't know what I can and can't afford. I can afford this cigar, although this was donated.
Your truck's not far off.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So there's that, and then out in Newark, the Newark airport, they lost radar.
Yeah, for
So
like
they-
45 seconds, I think.
Yeah, and so they were actually having to talk to the aircraft in the sky and tell them, like, we can't see you on the radar. And so obviously this is Secretary Duffy. He's announced that there's going to be some kind of a short-term overhaul of the radar system there at Newark. But they said that in order to update it, it would almost take like 10 years if they started now to upgrade all the radar that needs to be done here in the United States. And I'm like, 10 years? I mean, you had to
lot.
think that there was a signal
No
out there
better
that
time
said
to
that we need
start.
to get going on it
Yeah, I was going
much
to say,
earlier.
it's like the length of deployment shouldn't be a deterrent. Just get going on it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we can't keep rolling the way that we've been rolling.
We're not
Although
gonna
Newark
do it. We're not going to do it because it's going to take too long.
Newark was already under pressure because they had a closed runway for repair, I think. So they were already down on capacity. And yeah, shortly after that, like, what was it, 10 staff had to leave for like...
Yeah. For mental stress.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I don't think that we're, and I remember somebody commented on a previous episode where they said, you know, we talked about 4 major ones early in the year and there had been like 80 other close calls within the last week. We get it. You know, there's a lot of moving traffic out there in the sky and on the runways and within the airport properties. So obviously there's a high chance for there to have, you know, for something to happen. But you can't look the other way. You know, you have to be able to see some things for what it is and say, this doesn't add up. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on mechanically. And the other part too is that people decide, you know, how to travel and what to spend their money on based on confidence. And both American Airlines and Delta have seen a dip in their sales. So there's a connection there with what's been happening in 2025. I mean, we're just in May here, and there's been a lot of stuff. I mean, you got wheels falling off of airplanes, you got engine fires, you got planes that
Our
are...
pets' heads are falling off.
Yeah, I mean, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, all the things, right? So, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what is going on out there.
The first question is are we just hearing about more of this stuff? The second question, and
That's for sure part of it, because since we've started talking about this, my feed has been just littered with video footage of
Right.
these incidents happening.
Right.
yeah,
So
what
it's-
what happened last year that we didn't hear about? So that's a question.
Yep.
Is going back and going, is this just stuff that happens and now they're just talking about it? Or is it really just we're getting to a point where we haven't updated systems in so long? Maybe budget cuts, so we're not maintaining aircraft as well as we have in the past. Maybe DEI has less qualified people in positions
Right.
that we need to get rid of that stuff. Maybe it's a combination of all of it, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure it's multiple things. I think too there's been a staffing shortage for air traffic controllers.
There has
so they're
been.
all working.
And that's been for a while.
Yeah, they're all working fatigued, right? They're working under strenuous circumstances, which is not what you want when you're dealing with
Right.
the pressure that comes with landing those planes. Those planes keep coming. So, like, the thoughts that I've had this week are, okay, they are going to have to upgrade the system at some point. When they do that, is AI going to be somehow integrated into that system to relieve the pressure that's put on human that has to sit in that room for
Right.
however long a day they have to sit in that room and land those planes? And then if that's the case, which I'm sure there will be some element of it, now's the time, and I think what Trump is doing with tariffs is forcing the onshoring of production, and we need to see chip manufacturing coming back to the States, because if we start introducing AI into our air traffic control systems and the hardware that's powering that AI It's manufactured by China. We're in trouble. Like there's a history of them building backdoors
So
into things.
Is that related to the minerals deal with Ukraine? Because you need those those rare earth minerals to create the chips.
Well, yeah, that's a huge part of what is the peace process of what Trump wants with Zelensky is to basically have first rights to the minerals that come out of Ukraine. Thereby, you can kind of understand why the Trump administration is pretty anxious to have a deal be made between Ukraine and Russia. So, yeah, we'll get it right here for you. But at the end of the day, going back to the air traffic control question, and all the close calls, there might be a conversation here about when does the system is basically saying enough, too much is too much. I mean, we're at a point now of criticality where, the flying public, it's a huge industry. That's an understatement. It's a huge industry. But at what point do we say, look, the system that we have built from coast to coast is at maximum capacity? The more planes we put up in the sky is all the planes that we have to track.
Right.
And if you don't have the capability to track those planes, to communicate with those planes, to land them safely and take them off have them take off safely, then isn't there a responsibility for the airlines to start pulling back, or the FAA, and saying, you have to pull back. You can't have these many flights scheduled. We're gonna start crashing major planes. That are full of 190, 200, 300 people in them. I mean, that's going to be a very, very bad day.
When we've got personal flying vehicles.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
That's really going to muck things up.
How's that going to work?
If you're starting.
Have you been to Florida?
It'll be like flying cars 100 feet off the ground, helicopters 300 feet, everything else above.
Yeah, stay in your vertical lane.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm curious. What do you think about what I just offered up there? Is there a point of, all the things that we do as living human beings, we're all a part of a system.
Right.
You get on the roadway in your car. The highway is a system, right? Mm-hmm. When we look at how our air traffic crosses over just our country alone, let alone obviously crossing over the oceans. Mm-hmm. But at what point, I'm just kind of, throwing this out there, and we'd love to hear some comments online where we ask do we just have too much flying aircraft out there to track and handle?
I don't think so.
You don't think we're there?
No, I think the counterpoint of that is, do our systems need to be updated to handle the traffic we have? I think that's the issue. I don't think it's that we have too much traffic. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what is the percentage of flights today versus 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? There might be a bump, there might not. Routes are being terminated all the time as new ones come online. So
right.
I don't know. I just think our systems are aging and we need to get on top of how do we... I think there should be some human element, but I think it's the percentage of human to automated is too high right now.
Yeah.
So I think we need to figure out, those are things that computers are really good at doing. So we need to figure out how to deploy
the integration of AI. Already, planes fly themselves most of the time.
That's right.
And that's without AI, I believe. AI is just relatively new. I have a friend who's a pilot. He's like, you're not flying that much. When you're there for backup.
Yeah.
You're there to take off and land.
Yeah.
To make sure everything's right. But while it's in the air, it's flying itself. I have a buddy of mine who has a Tesla car. He lives in the suburbs, and every weekend he's in town, and we have to be, he's got to be here early, and he leaves late, and I asked him about the self-driving mechanism on the car, and he's like, it takes me from this parking lot to my driveway, and I don't touch the wheel. He's like, I got to be attentive to what's going on, to watching my eyes. But he's like, I don't drive any of it.
Well, what's interesting
And-
about that
and
is
so
that
that's just the beginning.
Well, it is, because Elon Musk has said that he sees a future car of his from Tesla where there is no steering wheel.
That terrifies me.
And that,
Yeah,
right,
like-
I know,
like
and
that.
and I'm like, I kind of did a double. I'm like, what?
That's a level of trust that I
I
just
think
don't
Right,
have.
it's
that would
like
have to be at a point where you got to get to a point, because the wild card is, what if half of them are driving themselves and the other half are just people who probably drive worse than the car itself, who are unpredictable driving. If all the cars were driving themselves, it'd be very predictable and a lot easier probably. It's just the people that are nuts driving their cars, interacting with the cars that are driving themselves. But in cities around, in California and I think other cities now, you take a cab and there's no driver.
Exactly.
You just jump in the car. There's a steering wheel, but nobody's there
So-
driving the car.
So here will be the question that needs to be answered, and I can't imagine that it's been solidified, but I'm sure that it's already happened out there, where you have a self-driving vehicle collide with a vehicle that's being driven by a human.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the question that I have is, in terms of finding fault, is it more faulty will it end up being more faulty on the system that's operating or the human that's operating? And how do you distinguish between the two? I mean, I'm talking beyond the obvious. I'm talking about a drunk driver, behind the wheel operating a vehicle, okay? I'm not talking about mechanical failure of the car itself, but the computer onboard system that's driving the car, does it make a mistake and collide with a person that's driving a car by a human? Or does the person that's driving the car as a human, is it more faulty on them because they can't think and operate to the level that a onboard computer system can?
How's it going to affect insurance premiums? Is my question.
Right. That'll be
is
the
my
next one,
insurance
is
going
that-
up or
Sure,
down?
will it go up or down? Right, because if it's the software manufacturer that's found liable, there could be some pretty deep pockets there, But yeah, are we going to start paying for bugs in software because of loss of life or loss of property because someone put a colon instead of a semicolon in their code?
You're
Yeah,
liable because
exactly.
you didn't update your software last night.
Right.
Because your internet went out.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of conversation about, we have a new pope. We've had another go around of aircraft that are just having some very strange mishaps. Hitting on a little bit of AI there. You brought up, I want to jump over to, you brought up that you recently went, and I went to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That looked like a good time.
It was a great time. This is my third year in a row. Got a great group that goes down there. I highly recommend, if you can go to the Kentucky Derby, stop saying it's on your bucket list. Go.
Just go, right?
Go. It is the most fantastic time. People dressed up. Not everybody, most do, but there were some people that they don't. There's no requirement that you've got to dress to the nines, but we do. We like to do it. It's fun.
It's bougie.
It's bougie. It is, and but to be right there and be that close to the action is it's so cool. There's a great series on Netflix right now called Race for the Crown, and it builds up to last year's race, which I was at, where Mystic Dan won by literally a nose. I mean, the photo finish is one of the greatest photos of all time in horse racing. But yeah, and then obviously this year with Sovereignty winning. And I had Sovereignty and journalism.
You did pretty well for yourself.
I did. I had them for Win Play Show, both Sovereignty and journalism, so that was pretty awesome. But great time overall. I can't say enough about it.
What's your opinion on people throwing derby parties not at the derby? Like I've seen some photos online of friends that are throwing a derby party and they're all dressed to the nines.
Yeah, I
and
think
they're
it's
drinking
awesome.
mint juleps, but they're nowhere. They're watching a TV. They're nowhere near.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, obviously the Derby is, a couple things that, people may or may not know, but the day before is what they call the Oaks, and that's all the fillies that race on that Friday before. The big race on that day is the 11th race. And then on Derby Day, the actual Derby itself, the race itself, is the 12th race. And but before that, they do a great job. I mean, you can imagine the buildup that they do throughout the day. If you get there at 10, the gates open at 9, first race goes at 11 a.m., and then just about on every hour, they're racing. And there's some really, really cool aspects to that. I mean, they're racing the full track, they're racing on turf, and this year, the champagne, they call it, right? So if it's raining, which it almost always does rain on Derby Day, and so when the track gets all wet and muddy, they call that running in the champagne. So the track was very champagne-like this year, with lots of mud. And in fact, in the 12th race, when the Derby race finished, and sovereignty goes by, and journalism, and all the field of horses, the masks that they have on the horses themselves were just covered. Like you couldn't even see hardly the eyes of the horses themselves. So it was a very, very interesting year this year.
Do you know much about horse racing? Like how long do they race for? Those horses are worth millions, aren't they?
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah. I mean, so again, if you want to really, really kind of deep dive, and don't get me wrong, I mean, this is a kind of more like a rockumentary. I mean, it's on Netflix, Race for the Crown. It's I think there's 5 episodes or 6 episodes, but it'll give you all the education that you need on American horse racing. There is a little bit of pushback right now. We are seeing more and more horses that are coming over from like Dubai, Japan, things like that. Again, I'm a purist. Bourbon comes from America. I think American horse racing should be American horses, and that's it. If you want to do racing over in, which they do, but keep your horses over there in the Middle East. We don't need them here.
How about like a camel derby?
But that's their thing. That's not our thing.
I'd pay to see that.
I would pay to see that.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's just very, very interesting how that it's unlike the other things that we do in America, where anything that we can race, we do. I mean, we've got motorcycles and trucks and tractors and snowmobiles, and we race all of them. But the living being of the horse itself, and horses are just so cool. I grew up with them all my life, and I think that just the horse itself, I'm so glad to see that it's gotten better. I mean, they're years
for
past,
the horse,
for the horse, years past. I think there's definitely some criticism that can be handed out for how we were treating the collective of horses in horse racing. But I would say it seems like it's gotten better. I'm not an expert on it, but it seems like it's gotten better, and I think it always can. I noticed that there was an ambulance that follows. It's on the track, and as the race is happening, that ambulance, animal vet ambulance, basically is following behind, so that if a horse were to go down, they can get on it right away. So I think that's interesting. But
are we still at a point where if a horse goes down or breaks a leg, it's done, shot?
I don't know. I wouldn't be. I know that. So I was at the 149 Derby, and that year, 3 years ago, there were 7 horses that they had to put down.
Wow.
And that got some real criticism. From people. Why were there so many that went down? It was hot that year. Again, not sure if that played a factor or not, but I mean, it's crazy how when they get into their stalls in the paddock, and when they let them go, I mean, even just a bump or a slight trip of the horse, and the owners will know right then. They'll be like, "Yep, no chance." That little minuscule mistake will they'll know right away, and they'll be able to say up in their $1 million stand, suite, and they'll be like, nope, not this year.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's crazy. Just, but I had a great time. I highly recommend it. You got to go.
How
ahead.
busy is Churchill Downs outside of the Derby? Like, is it?
Oh,
is
it's
this a pretty?
It's bumping.
It's kind of in the middle of nothingness around it, right? Like little small homes and.
Yeah. So the neighborhood itself is interesting. It's not like, I don't know how to put it. It's not prestigious. It's a working class neighborhood. Now the people are excellent. They're amazing. I mean, there were people that were running you could park on the street, and there were people that were running shuttles, and doing it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a jerk and not tip.
Yeah.
But there was, the shuttle would literally pull up to us as we were parking the vehicle. Hey, you want to ride? And next thing you know, we're off on a shuttle and being taken down into the gates.
It's a lot like Green Bay is that way with Lambeau Field. A lot of small little ranch houses around it and everything, but everybody's great. And Indianapolis too, the Motor Speedway there, the township that it's in. Speedway, Indiana.
Yep.
I think is what it's actually in, right? Just tiny little houses, but it's like a lot of people that are, they're just so involved in that culture.
For sure.
Great people. So do the Downs have their own fire station? Do they have their own apparatus there?
They do.
Like,
They do. They have a Churchill's Down little fire department brigade.
Okay.
And I could actually see the fire truck itself behind some of their fencing. Now I did see lots of also Louisville firefighters that were working the
for that day in particular. Probably,
yeah. So hats off to the Louisville firefighters. One of the things that was really cool at night was that I got to make a connection. Original Firefighter, we got to make a connection with a new bar that's opened up in downtown Louisville called Tribe. And so they tagged us on our social, and we tagged them on our social. So if you're in downtown Louisville, just go one street off of 4th Street Live, go over to 3rd Street and go to Tribe. And great people. They're just opening up, a very lounge atmosphere. It's right up our alley.
Yeah.
And they made great drinks, very well crafted and very attentive, very friendly. It was a great time. So good vibe at Tribe. Go check it out if you're down there in Louisville. But it was great, the whole experience. But that brings me to want to jump over to you in the same weekend.
Yes.
We're talking that you went to a...
we went to the Chicago Pipe Show. Actually, Alan's going to be on here in a minute. Alan was there doing some shopping for the store here.
Yep.
And making some connections. But yeah, I mean, we had a great time. It was, this is probably one of the largest trade shows and conventions for pipe manufacturers, tobacco manufacturers, enthusiasts, whatever. So I'm an enthusiast. So we were there to shop and try to find some estate pipes that we could get restored or maybe that were in good smoking condition already. They had a smoking tent out there that was just great. I mean, a few guys went out, got some bourbon, sat down, smoked some pipes, made some connections with other people, met a guy, John from Connecticut. He and his son were there. And it's interesting just to hear the stories of how people have kind of made their way into that world. And but yeah, we had a great time. It was a great day in
pulled
Chicago.
a few Bing Crosby.
Yeah, I ended up pulling 2 pipes that were the one I'm smoking here, which is a Savinelli Bing Special, and then another by Merchant Services, both inspired by Bing Crosby, kind of that classic, mid-century pipe and a smoke jacket kind of pipe. So.
But the Merchant Services one was when he was in the military. Tell that story.
Yeah, so my understanding is people have tried to figure out what was the pipe that Bing Crosby was known for smoking, right? And there's a little bit of debate on that, but there was one that was kind of like a standard issue pipe by Merchant Services, and eventually after the war, that went away. That company went away, and then recently a guy has kind of picked it back up, figured out the SKU to make all that stuff, has relaunched his Merchant Services pipes, and he's selling these pipes that I swear, it's like you pick it up and it looks like Bing Crosby sitting down on a park bench in White Christmas, you know, talking things through while smoking his pipe, and it's a great throwback. So I'm looking forward to smoking that one. But we had a great time. It was just it was the first Saturday in a while that I've not had like work to get done, things around the house to get done. I actually got to get out and just chill for a bit. It was a great day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. What's the thing that one of you two have shared with me, that there is I don't know if it's a speakeasy or a cigar and bourbon kind of joint that runs, it's downtown Chicago, and the L runs right by it?
You're talking about
Yeah.
Ewan Reese.
What is this?
Ewan Reese. So this
Yeah.
is the oldest family-run tobacceria in the States.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Mecca for pipe and cigar smokers. They have a really nice smoking lounge. You have to have a membership to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But it sits right at eye level with the L. So, you know, you can have your locker, you're sitting in big lounge chairs like this. Very knowledgeable people. But in the wintertime when the snow's coming down, but it's a drive, and it's a lot of dough to sit in that lounge. So
Yeah.
this is where I'm going to be spending my winter this year.
That's Strike the Box.
Strike the Box, good
yeah.
people, good conversation, great pipe selection, great tobacco selection. This is going to be my new hideout.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should bring Alan on here, and we'll just take a quick minute. We'll
Yeah,
set
let's do
up.
it.
And Alan, we're going to bring you in here. This episode of the original Firefighter Podcast is sponsored by Castle Contracting. Castle Contracting offers commercial and residential restoration, leading the industry in roofing, residential siding, gutters and downspouts, egress window installation, storm damage assessment and repair, and solar energy, saving you money and time. If you want to be treated like royalty, contact Castle Contracting to schedule a free inspection. Call them at 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. That's 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. Serving Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, Castle Contracting has you covered. Your home is your castle. Call Castle Contracting today. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Well, welcome to Strike the Box, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. Man, Strike the Box, New Milford, Illinois. One of the things that I know, Alan, is that you have a long history in the fire service yourself. And actually, where we're at right now, we're very, very close to your former fire department, New Milford Fire Department, and it's a protection district, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So to give us a little bit of your background in the fire service, and we'll get to Strike the Box here in a minute. But what's your background overall in the fire service? When did you start?
Oh, man.
How far did you go?
Started back in November 1975.
Okay.
Walked into New Milford Fire Station and said, I want to join. I want to fight fires and be like Johnny and Roy. Most firefighters know who Johnny and Roy are.
Yeah. If you don't, you need to watch Emergency.
Yeah.
Is that picture on the wall?
Yep, that's
Yep.
Johnny Gage on the wall over there. And just got started there. Got my EMT the following year in 1976. Got married in 78, moved out of New Milford, went to Cherry Valley, and then eventually on to Rockford. I was on Rockford for 4 years, and then had to come back to the family farm.
Yeah.
And came back to New Milford for a short time, and then kind of moved around the Midwest, but always on a department somewhere until 2003 when I moved back to New Milford, came back on New Milford. The fire chief at that time found out I lived in town, came to my door, knocked on my door and said, here's your key, here's your pager, see you Monday night. And that started me down the road again, moved up through the ranks until I became their first full-time fire chief.
Yeah.
And,
What year did that happen?
oh gosh, 2015.
2015.
I remember that very well because that's the year my wife and I got married in August of 2015 in Sturgis. And it was at that time the fire chief of New Milford had decided to leave, and the trustees appointed me the day before I left for Sturgis, and they says, "Well, when you come back, you're the guy."
Yeah.
So
Sturgis Bay?
no, Sturgis,
Sturgis. South
motorcycle,
Dakota.
Sturgis, South Dakota.
Oh.
I was in a motorcycle club. My wife and I called Fire and Iron,
Oh, yeah.
and spent many good years with them until we opened the shop here, and then it just got to be too busy here.
Yeah.
To-
Does Fire and Iron, they still operate?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah. They got a good following, don't they?
yeah. They got a good following here.
Yeah. So you mentioned, in 2015 you became their first full-time fire chief.
Yes,
Okay, heavy as the crown.
it is.
Okay,
It is, believe me.
How and I'm familiar with the area, of course. I mean, I'm obviously a long time on the Rockford Fire Department, and it's interesting to know that you were on for 4 years with Rockford, and you had to decide to go back to your farm, your family farm.
Yes.
And what year was that? Do you remember? Was that during the?
Very early 1985.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, was it during when under the Reagan administration when the farming industry basically had a pretty big fallout?
Yeah.
So is that kind of what played an influence?
It played an influence into it.
Yeah.
My dad played an influence into it, and it was just something I had to do.
Yeah.
And it was a very hard decision. I look back on it now and wish I wouldn't have done it. I wish I would have stayed, obviously, with full-time.
Right.
But you can wish in one hand,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
we know
see,
how that goes.
and see which one fills up faster.
Yeah.
But I became a paramedic and kept my paramedic license for quite a few years after that. But eventually I dropped it,
Yeah.
because I wasn't using it anymore.
So what was when you got to the point you became the fire chief? Then what was at that point in time? Because that's just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I say that because yes, there's been a lot of change in the fire service. Well, there's always change in the fire service. I've said that several times on the show. But 10 years ago it's not that long ago. What were you dealing with as you started to assume that role of being the fire chief and realizing, okay, to sit in that position, here are the things that were important to being the fire chief in New Milford, Illinois?
I think
What were you trying to tackle when you started out?
I think the biggest thing that I found was manpower.
Yeah,
It was
it's always isn't it?
It was right at that time where we were struggling in New Milford, and I think many other volunteer departments, quote unquote volunteer, of finding local people to come in and volunteer on the department. It was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
So we had to reach out and pull in kids from community colleges and high schools and different areas like that to come into our village here to help run our department. Sure. And I think that was the biggest challenge. And I think that's with every department, even to this day, is finding the manpower
I
to do it.
I didn't want to assume it. I didn't want to say it. I kind of wanted to hear what your first thought was. I assumed, as I was asking that question, I assumed that it was going to be that it was, the shortage of people that could staff your fire trucks, staff your ambulance, and but also to be able to have the long-term commitment to stick with it.
That was the hardest part. So many of the younger people that we brought in, they were looking to step up and move on to bigger departments, full-time departments. We were a stepping stone. Sure. And many volunteer departments, quote unquote volunteer. Now New Milford has co-partnered or however merged with Blackhawk Fire Protection District, and they're full-time department with very few guys, and from what I understand, I don't have a lot of I don't get a lot of information from them anymore, but they're still struggling to find people, and but it's a full-time thing now, and the trustees of the fire districts have got to be creative to get more money in.
Yeah.
And you can only go to the taxpayer well so long.
Well, you're starting to share more and more resources with one another.
Yes.
And I think that also municipalities and communities are starting to realize that it's not for the lack of wanting. People do love to volunteer. And when we say the word volunteer on the original Firefighter, we understand that there still are very real fire departments out there across America. You go on the East Coast and there's entire volunteer brigades. I think Emmitsburg, Maryland is one of them, where the National Fire Academy is, where it's a truly volunteer group of people that are staffing that fire department. And that does continue in places around the country, but it's becoming harder and harder to find the people within the community that can work a first time, their primary job, but then also have the ability and capability to volunteer, become a paid on call member, to be able to respond as a firefighter.
A lot of the problem is that the volunteer has to go through as many classes as the full-time
Right.
Exactly.
guys
It's
do.
a big commitment.
Exactly.
And
Where's that threshold for a community where they go, this can no longer be volunteer?
Yeah.
It's got to be paid.
it's tough. You've got to educate your community and make them understand that it's going to cost money. And here in Illinois in particular, we're taxed to death.
We
Right.
are. Yeah.
And people just don't want to pay more tax. We're already paying one of the highest tax states in the union.
Right.
I have a sidebar question that I've been wanting to throw out there. The last couple of weeks, I've been following some of the news and some of President Trump's interviews, and he's talked about how there's been some savings that have started to come to fruition. Egg prices have come down. He's saying that energy has come down a little bit, and he mentioned the other day, and he's done this twice. He said, "Yeah, and we're seeing gas prices falling too." And he threw out this, in some places it's $1.90 and this and that. And
Where's that?
The other day, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You bring up Illinois, and I'm like,
Illinois is the 7th highest gas price.
$3.35
Yeah.
is like the norm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, when are we seeing this here in Illinois?
Well, it's state tax.
Yeah, I know.
On the
That's what I'm
gas,
saying.
yeah.
State
And
tax
to
is like
Alan's
43
point-
Probably not
cents.
going
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, to Alan's point,
probably-
it's like we are. I mean, we truly are taxed to the hilt. And that, again, I just wanted to throw that in there and talk about, the president talking about gas prices across the country. And here we sit in New Milford, in your, awesome establishment that we're going to talk about here in a second. But it's just interesting how in Illinois, we are very, very taxed to the hilt. I can't, Governor Pritzker has been bombastic with his rant on Trump and the tariffs, while at the same time, he drives an agenda to tax the shit out of us here.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, wait a minute.
And he wants to be president.
And he wants to be,
It's like,
right. So that'd be fun.
that's another whole
The
video
Oval
you can
Office
do.
will have to be made into a donut size
Yeah.
for him. So he's such a jerk. Anyways, Alan, but back to you and the commitment that you're talking about. I mean, obviously, you have overall. How many years did you give to the fire service?
43.
43 years.
Wow.
Hey, we're gonna do a little
Right.
bit of a
Right out of high school.
Yeah.
tip of the hat and a sip of the bourbon to you.
Well, thank you. It went by fast.
Yeah,
Believe me.
it always does,
It
doesn't
went
it?
by real fast.
My 28 years in Rockford went like that. So
Yeah.
my fingers, and it was over. This episode is brought to you by Strike the Box Cigars, Pipes, and Tobacco. Whether you're a seasoned aficionado or just starting your journey into the world of fine tobacco, Strike the Box has what you need. From the finest cigars to premium loose leaf tobacco, Strike the Box delivers on quality in a welcoming space where you can enjoy a smoke and good company. Additionally, Strike the Box specializes in vintage pipe restoration. We're talking estate pipes brought back to life with craftsmanship that borders on art. Got Grandpa's old briar gathering dust? Let the crew at Strike the Box make it smoke like new. Check out their full list of vintage pipes for sale at striketheboxpipeandcigar.com or swing by the shop located at 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois. Soak in the aroma and talk shop with real tobacco lovers from the American Fire Service. Strike the Box, where fire, flavor, and tradition meet. Again, that's striketheboxpipeandcigar.com or swing by the shop located at 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois. Anyways, let's jump into this place here. And you just heard Aaron say that this is going to be his winter hangout.
Well,
Yeah.
So
I'm going to hold him to it too.
yeah.
Won't be hard.
Yeah, and we do enjoy. Obviously, we have our studio here in Rockford, and we come down here often, and we've gotten to collaborate with you a little bit. We want to thank you for being a sponsor of the original Firefighter Podcast. So we really appreciate that, and I know we're going to be doing another event here in June up at a local establishment in McChesney Park, Illinois. That's on June 11th at the Parks.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be a good event. There's going to be a small class on bourbon, actually. 40 people. The first 40 people that sign up for that, you can go through the Parks to get registered. But specifically here at Strike the Box, when did you decide that you were going to enter into this venture?
I have been talking about this for probably about 10 years. I've always loved cigars, and firefighters love cigars. Sitting on the tailboards of the trucks out on the apparatus floor, smoking cigars after supper at night. That was just a thing, and I would talk to my wife about it, and she kept saying, "Nope, over my dead body, we're not doing that." And
she's still alive, right?
Oh yeah, she's still alive, still carrying on.
Yeah.
But we just said one day I told her, I said, well, I had talked to the insurance agent here next door to me, and I said, man, I still want to open a cigar shop, but I just said I just don't know. And he says, when are you going to get off your ass and just do it?
Yeah.
And I says, I don't know. He says, well, I've got the perfect place for you. It's right next door to my office. This was a tattoo parlor.
All right.
And he says,
firefighters love them too.
Yeah, he says it's pretty much, I think it'd be pretty much set up for you, and I think it'll work for you. I said, okay, well, I'll come down Saturday and look at it. I got up that Saturday morning, got dressed, and my wife says, where are you going? I says, I'm going to go look at the old tattoo shop down in New Milford. I says, I want to open up a cigar shop, and I says, I'm going to do it with or without you, type of thing. And she said, oh, really? And I says, well, you can either come with and support me in it, or you could stay home and not support me. Let me get dressed, she said.
Oh, there you
So
go.
she got dressed, she came down, we were in here for probably an hour, and pretty soon she started saying, well, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And I said, so it sounds like you're on board. And she said, I'm on board. So we got the ball rolling. Of course, we had to get a loan to get it going. Met with the bankers and so forth, and they said, well, we really can't help you with that, but we know somebody who can, and that's the Northern Illinois Development Council. Put together a business plan, went down and talked to them, talked to two gentlemen in there. One was an older gentleman, and one was a young guy, probably early 20s. And the older gentleman said, a cigar lounge, you really think that's going to fly? And the younger guy said, yeah, we need to do this. This is going to fly.
Yeah.
And the older gentleman said, well, okay, let us look this over and we'll call you. And with our decision. Before we got home, he said, your check is cut, it's ready to go, come back and pick it up.
Dang.
And that's how fast
That's
it went.
confirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's how fast it went.
What year was that?
And you used up your one ultimatum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah. So that was 20. Oh man, this is 2025. So it's 2020, right at the end of COVID.
Wow.
right at the end of COVID. We
Yeah,
opened.
that's a ballsy move.
So then what now, as you've gotten into this, what has been your biggest challenge as you started getting this up to where you're at today? What was the hurdle that you had to overcome?
Just getting people to realize that we're here
Okay, yeah.
was the biggest thing, because you really can't advertise because it's the dreaded tobacco.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
That was the hardest part. And we still have people come in to this day. We've been here, just started our 4th year, and we still have guys coming in today. We didn't even know you were here, you know.
Yeah.
But we get new people in all the time.
Yeah.
So
So now that you have a base of people that come here frequently, you're going to start to go into some other things, and this is sort of why you're wearing this fancy.
yeah, you like this?
Smoky
I
jacket.
I mean, we didn't realize that we were supposed to be wearing
Well,
jackets here.
I feel
but,
very underdressed today.
Yeah, but tell us about your jacket and
we,
why you're wearing it, because I know it's got a
this
good tie into
this
it.
is a well, I had to dress up for you guys. You know, nothing but the best for original firefighter. But anyway, we're starting what's called the Chiefs Club, and it's an exclusive club here for it's members only. It's going to be $50 a month or $500 paid up front for the year. We're going to meet once a month in the evening. We're just going to lock the doors. Nobody else can come in. And we're going to be introducing a new cigar every month to the members. And you get that cigar free that night. The members do. You could bring guests and so forth. Of course, they won't get the free cigar.
Right.
But we encourage them to bring guests. We've probably got 9 or 10 members already that have committed to, yes, we're going to do this. We're launching this today on your podcast.
Did you get a jacket?
Well, for
Be in
an
the
extra $35, we order you in a jacket.
That's
Nice.
Nice.
So all the members will get a jacket just like this, and then you'll have exclusives. The night of the meeting, it's going to include a dinner, and we'll have buy 2, get 1 free, buy 3, get 1 free type, whatever we come up with. And then you'll have first dibs like on our steak fry. Our steak fry is this coming Friday, a week from today, is our annual steak fry here. And you'll get first dibs on buying the tickets. For that, we're planning a trip up to Milwaukee to Brewfest.
Nice.
That's a cigar festival also. You'll get first dibs on that, to buy the tickets for that.
Yeah.
So there'll be some exclusivity. You get a punch card, so if you make eight meetings throughout the year, gets thrown into a hat. We draw your name. We say, you get a free box of cigars. What cigars do you want me to buy for you? And I buy a box of cigars and that.
Man, that's
So
And when's the first kickoff day?
the first meeting is going to be the second Friday in June.
Okay, second Friday in June. That's going to go on my calendar, I think. So that's awesome. So that's the Chiefs Club at Strike the Box
Yep.
at 6935 11th Street.
Beautiful downtown New Milford.
Yep. Now that's great. So let's talk about, so that's the Chiefs Club. Then let's just, have a conversation about how when you come in here, you immediately see the cigar aficionado feeling, the persona of it. And then you also have the other persona of the fire service itself kind of intermixed.
yeah. You got to
together.
post. That's the coolest photo up there.
That right
The
there.
black and white
Yeah.
photo.
Yep.
Yeah.
That photo we did is actually
Back doors open.
we actually did. I'm smoking a cigar called the Chief. It's made by a fire chief out of Long Island, New York. Very good friend of mine, Ken Dorbecker, and I love his cigars. And we had a guy in here doing a promo shoot for us, and I said, "Hey, let's take a picture of that with his cigar," and he uses that in his national ads.
That is the
For the
coolest.
Chief cigar.
Yeah, you gotta put that up on
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're just listening, it's a black and white photo of Chief Allen, and you've got the chief cigar, and you're looking down, looking like you're making a very important decision there. But what I love is that it's black and white, and then the cigar kind of just pops. 'cause it's in
the
color.
cigar's in color.
Yeah, so it's an excellent photo. But just all of it, and I think that this really resonates with firefighters themselves, where there's so much interesting history, and there's some personal touches, obviously. I mean, we're looking at your previous fire coats and helmets that you've worn. I've kept a lot of my stuff, and I think the firefighters that are out there across the country, I mean, you can't help but collect this stuff.
Right.
And so much of it is Americana. I had a little bit of a baptism in European firefighting. I went to Europe last year, and I was in France and Germany and Austria, and I got to see, firefighting from their point of view and what they're, and it's no disrespect by any means. I think it's interesting. It's different.
Yeah.
It's very different. I mean, their fire trucks are, from my perspective, they seem very kind of simple. They're real straight lines, and there's just not a lot of flash to them. You look at an American fire truck, and there's just tons of flash. I mean, even on
a lot of chrome,
all the chrome, all the brass,
and the brass bells on the front, and the eagles and all that. One of the coolest fire departments that's very close to where we're at is Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. And I don't know if you've ever been up there.
No.
But Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, they've stuck with this. This is their thing. But all of their fire trucks, they are black, like black. They call it Mount Horeb black fire trucks, right? And everything is black. Now they call it safety black. That's what they called it.
Huh.
So safety black, and then they just trick these trucks out like nobody's business. So if you ever have a chance, if you're up in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, stop in there, check out their fire department, their firehouse. It's actually worth it. It's very, very cool. I would liken it to stopping at I mentioned Emmitsburg, Maryland, and stopping at Emmitsburg's fire department out there. Another gorgeous fire department downtown Emmitsburg, and just such tradition and Americana that's in those firehouses. So, like I said, I mean, when I was over in Europe and I was in France and Germany and Austria, the people I met were fantastic. They wanted to talk to me deeply about the fire service around the world, and just how that connection was there. But I gotta say, I love when we come back and we see our way of doing it, the old helmets that we've got. I never want to see that bicycle European helmet on any fire
No,
truck.
no.
I don't want that. Don't want that.
The jet fighter. Or
And if people disagree, I don't care.
I'm old school, leather, fire helmet.
Yeah. But what's your favorite thing about when you get to spend time in here? What's your favorite? Is it owning the business? Is it the conversations that you get to have with people that are in here? What do you love about this and owning this place?
I'm kind of curious about, like, you have your shop, and you probably get people in here. I'm one of these people. I always liked having a cocktail with friends, but I quit drinking. As I get older, it doesn't sit with me as well. So it's just a nice way to kind of like hang out with friends, have a cigar, just chill out, shoot the shit together. And it's a social.
So you gave up one vice for another vice.
Yeah, I'm like,
Okay.
I got to do something that's healthier for my body. But getting into it, I walk into that room, and you probably act as a guide sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
I walk into that room, and it's a wall of cigars, and I'm kind of overwhelmed. I'm like, man, I got to do my research.
Yeah.
But somebody coming in for the first time, maybe they've dabbled in cigars. How do you kind of direct them? What's one to try for the first time, or what?
Well, I ask a lot of questions. How long have you smoked cigars? What kind of cigars do you like? Do you like a lighter cigar, a medium cigar, or a full body cigar? A lot of guys will come in and say, well, I don't smoke cigars very often. I've got a couple of cigars that are go-to cigars.
How can you tell looking at the wall if something is lighter, full-bodied, darker. Yeah. How do you eyeball that?
It's generally, and you can't go 100% by this, but it's the wrapper. The lighter the wrapper on the cigar, generally the milder the cigar is. Where the darker the wrapper, the more full body it is.
So is that just the taste, or is that the
The potency.
the potency?
Yeah.
So if it's a dark cigar,
there's some cigars
gonna
I've had that
it
knock
might
you on
knock
your
you out
ass.
of your
yeah.
butt.
Yeah.
sure.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And there's cigars in there that I won't even touch, and I've been smoking cigars for years. It's just the way it is. I just can't stomach those.
Yeah.
So, and it does affect you. I mean,
Better have a
sometimes
bowl
you
of-
get.
You better have a bowl of sugar next to it.
You better have a soda or something that you're sipping on if you're a rookie
Yeah.
and you're gonna try a full body cigar.
you get guys coming in getting those?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I tell them, drink a soda with this. Don't drink bourbon. Don't drink water or coffee with this, especially coffee with a full body cigar. You want to get sick, and you're a rookie. Oof, you'll get sicker than a dog. Have something really sugary, candy bar, whatever.
Is price of the cigar indicative of the quality too?
That's a good question.
It is, but I've got cigars in there that are like $7-8 that I like so much better than $15 cigars. But
But
then
what is pushing that? I had the same question that Rob just had. I like Olivia, and it's about a $10 cigar. But I saw in your humidor there you got $20, $25 cigars. So I'm just curious, what pushes that price point up in the cigar world?
some of it is the name of the cigar. I've got the Cohiba Red Dots, one of the best cigars out there, and they're a $35 cigar. I don't sell too many of them,
Right.
but I've got guys that'll come in and say, "Give me your best cigar." I carry them just for those kind of guys.
And that's one of the best. If
Yeah.
you're going to try
Yeah.
top of the line.
I had a guy come in a week or so ago, pulled in here at 5 minutes to 6. We closed at 6 o'clock. He came in and he says, "Man," he said, "I'm glad you're open. I need a box of your very best cigars." And I says, "Okay, well, I don't know if I have a box in there, but let's go look." And I says, "How much you want to spend?" "Oh, somewhere around $600. And I went, "Ooh."
We're open.
I'll find a box. Yeah.
So
you get a jacket. You get a free jacket.
yeah. So I had a whole box of Cohiba Rivieras,
Nice.
and those were $28-ish cigars, nearly $30 cigars. And
How expensive can a cigar get?
there's cigars out there that'll be $80 to $100. And you get into the Padrones and the Davidoffs and some of those, and you're going to drop some coin. It's just a lot of that's just the name. I think.
So it's not necessarily the smoke itself.
To me, no.
Yeah.
But to other guys who smoke those, they'd argue with me up and down that, "Oh yeah, these taste so much better." Okay, so that's one guy's opinion to another's.
So when I got into it, I always do what do you call this cut?
That's the V cut.
The V cut.
I use a V cut also.
because that's what you started me off with. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of creature of habit.
Yep.
So how much does that cut affect the smoke? And what's the difference?
It does. To me, it doesn't affect the smoke. Again, some guys might argue with that. I like a V cut so much better than a straight cut because you get less small pieces of tobacco in your
Right.
mouth.
Yep.
So there's
Makes
really
Less surface area.
so there's really somebody that would argue it's better to go with the other cut. What would they?
They would probably say it's a better draw,
Yeah.
maybe more flavor. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've smoked them both ways, and I really can't tell the flavoring
Yeah.
any more than anything else. So
I just learned how to even light a cigar properly. Like I didn't know you kind of torch the front before you
Draw on it.
you draw on it, and then you light it, and then you blow on the front.
yeah,
So I'm kind of like picking up some skills along the way a little bit.
Yeah.
But that made a huge difference. Like
There's a
just
whole thing
burns
to it.
evenly.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
Rob brings up a good point. There's a whole art to the whole thing.
Oh yeah, and there's an art to pipe smoking too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just tradition.
Tradition.
You know,
Tradition.
and like you say, it's an art. And some guys will pack their pipes different and light their pipes different. Some guys will light their pipes only with a match.
Right.
And some
Yeah,
guys
the
will use a
purists.
soft flame. Some guys I've seen will use a torch. You know,
That's a no-no.
And that's a huge no-no.
I butchered
on a
my
pipe.
first pipe that way.
Yeah.
Using the torch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, swing over. Since we're kind of going down the road, swing over to your pipes. Obviously, we have a bunch of them behind us here, but swing over to the pipes that you have here and what you're doing here at Strike the Box with restoration of those pipes.
Well, first thing is we're the largest pipe shop in North Central Illinois.
Okay.
Since the Tinderbox closed here in the Rockford area,
Yeah.
we have now become the largest pipe shop in
And
North
for
Central.
what it's worth, I'm going to do a little toast to Dennis.
Yes, Dennis was a great guy, great friend, great mentor. But I started refurbing tobacco pipes back when I was the fire chief in my basement.
Yeah.
And
A fire chief restoring pipes.
yeah. And
It makes sense.
Yeah,
it
it
goes
does.
together
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
lot of
I started
tradition.
smoking pipes, and then pretty soon I said, well, I'm going to just start dabbling here and restoring them. And it got to be a hobby. And then I've got an eBay store for them, and it was a way for me to relieve stress. And I could go to my basement after a stressful day at work and sit for an hour or two and just concentrate on that and lose my mind in it. And so I brought that down here, and I fix pipes from all over the United States. Guys ship them in here, and I fix them and send them back. But I go to estate sales, auctions, I buy collections, you know, whether it's one pipe or 100 pipes, and I restore them, sell them here in the shop, and sell them in my eBay
And
store.
people can send you their pipes, yes?
Oh, yes.
To have them restored by you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's kind of a cool feature, and we talked
is.
about that in our recent ad read, for Strike the Box, where you can take, if you have a pipe that's sitting at your home that your grandfather smoked at one point, you can bring that back to life, right?
Yes.
By sending it to you, and you'll restore it and get it back to him.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Now, Alan, you operate under Briar 911 for that service, right?
That's my pipe. end of
So
my
people are
business.
looking to find some estate pipes on eBay, or they're looking to have their pipe restored. That would be what they'd be looking for.
Well, to have their pipe restored, they would have to send it here to Strike the Box.
Right, okay.
And the address here. But my eBay store is Briar 911. And
That's great.
Yeah.
so
I like.
I don't put any new pipes on eBay. There's plenty of those on eBay.
Sure, yep.
And there's plenty of estate pipes on eBay too, but it's just something I started doing, and so all my estate pipes, I call them heritage pipes. I list them on eBay and then also sell them here in the store.
But if you're shopping, like I've done this plenty of times, shop for estate pipes on eBay, you never know what you're gonna find, right? Somebody might be selling something that is pretty rough, maybe has a cracked briar with no photo of it.
Yep.
So finding somebody, if you're in the market for an estate pipe that you can trust, to
We're
actually,
a top seller.
Yeah.
on
So yeah, check it out. Look for Briar 911 on eBay. One of the things that I think about when I'm smoking a pipe is the Pacific, which was a follow-up to Band of Brothers. I don't know if you guys watched that
Love
series. At towards the tail end of the Pacific, one of the soldiers that they were following, he comes back from war. He's dealing with PTSD. They don't call it that because that's not what they called it at the time, but
Right.
that's what he's dealing with. And he's sitting smoking a pipe and talking with somebody about how he picked up smoking a pipe because it gave him something to fiddle with and to maintain and to do and to occupy his mind. that's something that I've always enjoyed about smoking a pipe, is just that kind of the ritual of tamping and lighting and maintaining it and all that. Did you get into restoring? You're saying it was kind of cathartic for you to restore pipes. Was that also, like, I think a lot of guys get into restoring pipes because there are pipes that they want that they don't want to pay full new price for, right? And so
I'm
it's
sure.
like an entry into kind of building out your collection of pipes in a more economic way, but you got to do it right?
Yeah. Well, I collect a pipe brand called GBD. They're made in England, and one of the first pipes I bought was a GBD pipe in a group of pipes. I've got a shed at home that I smoke in, and it's all insulated, got a TV. It's my getaway from the wife at home when she's watching something on TV I don't want to watch.
Place.
It's not here. It's at my house. So I've got a separate lounge at home. But
Well done, Alan.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I started collecting GBD pipes, so I would buy pipes off eBay and refurb them. So I've got like 175 of those at home in my collection that I've restored myself.
That's awesome. That's great.
And and like I say, I've picked up pipes, as whole collections and stuff just to get that one GBD pipe. So I would restore the whole batch and then sell the rest on eBay.
Yeah.
So what makes the GBD so good?
I don't know. It's just the looks of them.
Yeah.
I bought my first one and I really liked it. To be honest, I never even smoked it. To this day, I haven't smoked it. I just love the look of it. And I got hooked up with a guy in Austin, Texas. That's a collector too, and we became very good friends. Never met face to face, but
Interesting.
we would challenge each other. Hey, look at this pipe on eBay. Are you going to buy it? Are you going to buy it? Type thing.
I think that's the cool thing is all the different looks.
Yeah.
And we picked up those Savinelli Christmas pipes
Yeah.
here. Each one of us have one.
Yeah.
And to me, it just looked so cool. I mean, I just was like, man, if I were a general, on the hill,
Yeah.
like I'd be like lighting that
Yeah.
pipe, So if we ever end up in a big war and I get drafted, I will have that pipe in my hand at all times.
There you go.
For something to do.
Yeah. Well, guys, what's that?
Can I snag that
Lighter?
No, the
Oh,
lighter.
the lighter? Yeah, of course you can. One more time, I just want to go through it real clear. Here at Strike the Box, you can get in on the Chiefs Club.
Yep.
Sounds like the second Friday in June is going to be your first event.
That'll be our kickoff.
And obviously, we highly support you. We appreciate that you support us.
Well, I believe in what you're doing.
Yeah,
so,
we really appreciate that. And one of the things that and to kind of tie into Aaron and him talking about Band of Brothers and the Pacific, great series. The both of them are amazing. But the PTSD and it doesn't even have to be that whether you have been diagnosed with PTSD or not. If you find that whether it's the job of the fire service or a culmination of the fire service, maybe you've had military background as well, and you kind of couple that together. It's a lot of action in your life. It's a lot of things that you've seen out there that are hard to explain to the layperson. And I think that one of the things that we're touching on here is, we're not trying to push people to, start picking up the bottle and drinking more bourbon or smoke your life away. But what we're doing here is very classy. It's very traditional. It's very community driven.
yes.
It brings people together. You can have an entire conversation. I've been thinking about this where, as we've been, doing this episode, I lit my cigar at the beginning, and now I'm just about at the end, and we've had this entire conversation. We've talked about the Pope, the new American Pope. We've talked about a little bit of some of the issues going on in America, and there's always going to be things going on, right? We're sitting around having a conversation like we would be doing at the firehouse, or like I like what you said, because one of my best overall memories is the collective moments where I got to sit with the guys I worked with and have a cigar after dinner. And we'd pull our rolling chairs out to the front apron. I mean, a summer night, let me just set this up. A summer night in front of your firehouse with the bay doors open, the shiny trucks behind you, you've maybe you've ran 2 calls, maybe you've ran 20 calls, whatever it is, you get to have a moment where you sit down and maybe have a cigar and talk with the guys that you work with. And maybe you talk about the day, maybe you talk about some of the calls you went on, or maybe you don't talk about any of that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you just talk about baseball.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And I think that that's what doing this, you know, some people look at it and they go, it's not good for you. It's a vice. And then it's like, you know what? And maybe it's just not for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's for us, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's not great if you're trying to live forever.
Yeah.
It's not the way to go.
Yeah. I would recommend not trying to live forever.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work out.
It's shaving off the bad years.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
But it is. I can't emphasize that enough, that I think that one of the things that really kind of brought us together was realizing, like, we have a common message, and that is community. You know, and supporting one another on your work days, because clearly, like I just said, you can have a cigar on your on-duty shift. But you could also be out having a good hike with your buddies, or going out, you know, on your annual hunting trip. Make sure you have some good cigars or a good pipe, and a good bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, there you go.
You'll have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest things about having the lounge here too is you could have a guy here that pumps gas at a gas station, and you can have an attorney, and you can have a CEO of a $500 million company, and they're all talking, and there's no rank or anything in a cigar lounge.
It's a equalizer.
It's an equalizer,
Yeah.
and
And
I
it's
think
a real, man-to-man, person-to-person experience.
yeah,
And a lot of the world nowadays is not that. I drive around our neighborhood. People got their shades closed. People are not out in their yards anymore. People don't socialize. They're on social media.
yeah,
And that's about it. So you even walk around the mall, which used to be, like, when we were growing up, the social place to be. People just walk around the mall because it was a place to hang out, and people don't do that anymore. The
Smartphones killed them all.
Amazon kind of is closing up the malls. And not necessarily, it's just like I think we're longing for experiences to be around each other now. And I think that will continue to grow as technology grows and so much is done online. It's like, what do you do that's a real human interaction
yeah,
anymore?
yeah.
And so
Good point.
those types of things, I think, hopefully will grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'm at the end of my cigar here. I'm gonna do a little tamp down.
I can do
on
another
the end of that. Yeah. We'll be back at Strike the Box for sure. Remember to come to 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois, to get your cigars, loose tobacco, and pipes. And obviously, come here and talk with Alan. Have a conversation. Get back to reality. Be a real person. Strike the Box in New Milford, Illinois. Also remember that Chiefs Club that's starting up in the second Friday in June. You want to get a part of that because apparently you're going to get a flashy jacket like the one Alan's wearing right now. I want one of those. Alan, we've had a great time, and you're always welcome back on the original Firefighter Podcast.
It was a good time. Thank you
Thanks a lot,
guys for
and,
being here.
As always out there, be safe.
Cheers.